This is how we do it.
This is how we do it.
La 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 la. La 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 la.
This is how we do it.
Okay, welcome back to another segment of This Is How I Do It. I am the IT Beast, and today we're going to be going over how to install EXSI Server onto your VMware Player. Why would I want to install EXSI Server on VMware Player in the first place? Well, a few reasons. One of them is just to see how EXSI Server works. You could also, as a small business IT, want to do that just to see how it would work before maybe going to the next step and actually buying it for your company. So we're going to be going over what exactly is EXSI Server. Well, EXSI Server is VMware's Type 1 hypervisor that runs directly off of the host hardware without requiring an additional operating system like Windows or Linux. Well, Linux and a version of Linux OS directly. Technically, the EXSI software is a Linux distribution. And then in order to manage it, you will need the vSphere client, because once you've loaded it and did the initial configuration, you will not be actually going into the EXSI server ever. All the heavy lifting is done by the vSphere client, or if you have vCenter, then the vSphere web client. And then, of course, there's your VMware Player. Alright, so the prereqs needed for this. Well, you need the installer file, which in this case, since we're demonstrating 5, anything 5x or above will do. We will need the vSphere client, which is the download right under the EXSI server installer. And then, of course, we need to download the player. It can be version 5 or up. It could probably even be 4. It will work either way. Also, make sure that the player you download is for a 64-bit operating system. Alright, our host system requirements. You need either a minimum of a dual core or Intel processor or AMD equivalent. Quad core, of course, would be better. Now, I've gone over these host system requirements to the best give you the minimum of having a satisfactory demonstration of your own. So this is about the lowest you really want to go if you want that to happen. As far as the RAM, between 4 to 6, it'll probably be closer to 4 once you have everything going. It'll be like maybe 4.5, but you may want to have that breathing room if possible. 8, of course, is and higher is highly recommended. 50 gigs of hard drive space. If you're just doing one virtual for your demonstration, then that's all you're really going to need. Video card, it could be just the internal video card on your PC or laptop. And then for the operating system, since we're doing EXSI Server, it has to be a 64-bit operating system. Cannot be a 32-bit operating system. So the minimum you can go is Windows XP Professional SP2, 64-bit, which is actually just a redo of Windows Server 2003 64-bit. They just changed a few title, but it's actually the same operating system. Preferably Windows 7 SP1 64-bit or higher would be highly recommended. Put this disclaimer in there. Not that it isn't going to work, because it will work. I've done it several times already. But installing VMware EXSI Server on VMware Player is not officially supported by VMware. So don't call VMware directly and ask for, hey, can you help me out here? I'm trying to install this on Player, because they will not help you. Now, with that being said, there are a lot of online communities out there, blogging sites, support sites that will help you if you run into problems. Alright, so now let's go off to the download site and start downloading our prerequisites. Alright, we are now on the VMware.com website. As you can see, we have different options we're going to choose. We're going to go ahead to downloads. Over to the right where it says free product downloads, we're going to click on vSphere hypervisor, and just below that is the player. Now, if you need to know how to download the player, I have another video that will cover the download and basic configuration of VMware Player. So we're just going to cover the hypervisor for today. So we're going to click on that. Alright, as you see, and I've told you before, they require that you be registered to download the hypervisor. Again, it's still free. They're not changing that at all. They just want to know who you are. So you can either create an account, or you can go ahead and, if you have an account, click I have an account. And then you would go ahead and type in your email address, which you've registered this under. Of course, this is a bogus email. I'm just showing you basically what you're looking for. And then your password. And then you click on log in. We're going to move down to the bottom of the page once you've logged in, and we are going to download the necessary install files that we are going to be using for our demonstration. Now, since I'm going to be doing this is a three-part series, which one of them will be upgrading, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to download the earliest version of version 5 of their EXI software. And I will click manually download. Then we'll save the file. Very important to know where you're saving it at. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this folder. We'll create a new folder. And we will hit save. Alright, so I'm done downloading my EXSI Server installer. Anyways, I will then go down a little bit further, and remember what I told you, we need to download our vSphere client, and the versions must match. So as you can see, this is the 5.0 version of our vSphere client, so we are now going to download this. Click save. And it will download in the same folder that I had already chosen for the installer. Okay, so that's now done downloading the vSphere client. Now, before you go, above where we first started before our downloads is going to be your product key, your free product key for the free version of the hypervisor. You will need that in order to have a vSphere EXSI server with no time on it. If you do not have that key, then what's going to end up happening is, and it'll start out this way anyways, is that it will stay in what's called the 60-day evaluation mode. And then after 60 days, it'll stop working. However, if you put the personal edition key in there, it will still continue to work with just the very basic features. While in evaluation mode, it does have all the different features available to you for your use. So make sure you copy that down somewhere before you exit out of here. So now we're going to go ahead and exit out of here, and we're going to start loading our EXSI server on VMware Player. Alright, let's go ahead and begin making our EXSI player within our EXSI server within VMware Player. I'm going to go ahead and click on create a new virtual machine. I will install the operating system later. And we go down to other, and we will choose other 64-bit. Then we'll type in a title, which will be EXSI 5X test. Alright. And make sure you know the location of your virtual machine. I always try to keep it within a separate drive. It will default normally unless you change it to your documents folder on Windows. Click Next. All right, 8 gigabytes is not going to cut it, so we're going to change that. I'm going to go ahead and give it 100. We probably will not use this much, but it's there if it's needed. We'll store the virtual disk as a single file, which again, it runs better if you do this. The only time you want to use this option is if you know it's going to be insanely huge and you got to do it like a multiple DVDs or Blu-rays. Okay, it's giving us a readout of what we've chosen. So I'm going to go back and just change a few things. All right, RAM, in this case, 256 will probably not do the job. So we're going to go ahead and change that. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it up to 4. That doesn't mean it's going to use all 4, but it's there if needed. And then for CD DVD, we're going to use an ISO image. So we will click on that. Then we will click Browse. And then we will choose the folder where we originally set up. As you can see, VMware installer 5.0. Highlight that, click Open. Okay, that is now loaded in your virtual DVD drive. Network adapter, we're going to go ahead and change the bridge for right now. This will, of course, share its internet connection with the physical NIC of my PC. Sound card, we do not need a sound card on EXSI Server. We'll go ahead and take that out. Processors, we're going to go ahead and set at least 4 cores up. Mine has 8, and I'm just going to share 4 of them. Like I said, this would never be used in a production or even a full-blown lab environment just because of the physical requirements of this PC, which is still pretty good, but you would need something a little bit more robust if you wanted to set something that was more for lab. This would be more like setting it up for VMware certification testing, or you're just testing the product out to see what you think of it. Okay, so after that, we're done. We're going to go ahead and hit close. And then if we're happy, we're going to go ahead and hit finish. All right, so it's telling us it is now ready. So we are going to go ahead and hit play virtual machine. And as you see, it blew itself up. Not literally, of course, but just so that you can see it better. Now we have the choice. We can let it count down, which I'm going to let it do. Or you can hit enter because it's going to go with the very first choice. And now it's going to start setting up its files to be loaded for the installer. Alright, you see the splash screen in good old MS-DOS format. It's amazing. VMware's most lucrative product that they sell, well, when you buy it anyways, runs off of a very simple architecture that uses basically technology from the 1980s. Go figure, right? So anyways, you can see with the splash screen, it will tell you, if there's a physical machine, it would tell you what model server you were running, along with the model number of the server, including, of course, as you can see, the number of processors and how much memory that's available for it. Alright, so we're at the welcome screen. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter. It's just a little warning about compatibility guides. They are supported. I'm telling you now, especially with the newer versions of the EXSI Server, it will work virtually on just about any PC, even if it's one that you just put together. I've done it on normal PCs, and I'm telling you, bro, it will load. Alright, so we're going to go through, and we have to agree to the license agreement if we want to continue with our little demonstration. So we're going to click F11. Alright, so it's found the virtual drive that I made. As you can see, it's 100 gigs. This will scan to make sure it has all drives located. If you have a USB drive or something in there, it will pick that up too, along with the thumb drive. Some people, in fact, I've seen it was loaded the OS on the thumb drive and have left the actual larger partition just for virtual machines. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter. Okay, the keyboard layout. If you're a US like I am, you can choose default. If you're, say, my publisher, you choose the United Kingdom, but we're going to go ahead and hit enter for US default. Alright, root password. This is, of course, the built-in administrative account, and since this is based off Linux, you have the root to deal with. Now remember your password once you do this, because if you don't, you will not be able to go in and configure your EXSI server. And they match, so we're going to hit enter. Alright, it's just giving you a warning saying that the hardware virtualization is not a feature on the CPU, which is not true. It's more or less just stating that you're loading this in a virtual machine and it's not able to detect your physical machine's true settings. So we're going to go ahead and just click enter and safely ignore this. On a physical PC, you would probably do one or two things. One, if you see this, you would check your BIOS settings to make sure that hardware virtualization is enabled. Or if you know it's enabled, you can then safely just ignore it, like what we're going to do now. Okay, it's configured to install. It's going to go ahead and install your EXSI server software. Since I don't want to bore anybody to death, what I'm going to end up doing here is speed up time, because this could take anywhere from maybe a minute to two to like 10 to 15 minutes, which is normal. So don't let this alarm you. Alright, as you can see, we have finished loading our EXSI software onto our virtual machine. So we're going to go ahead and reboot the system. I'm going to go ahead and press enter. Okay, we have finished rebooting our EXSI server. As you can see, we're back to the flashy MS-DOS days splash screen. The only difference, other than you of course see the specs of your server if you were running one, is below it shows as an IP address, which says DHCP. Now, in a lab environment, that will probably work okay, but in most cases, you're going to want to change that to static. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit F2, and it's going to ask us for that root password we had to remember. And then it will go into our setup screen. Okay, we don't need to configure the password. Alright, now we're going to hit to configure management network. We're going to hit enter. Network adapter is fine. We're just going to skip that along with the VLAN optional install. Okay, IP configuration, hit enter. This is where we change our IP address. But before we can do that, we have to take it off the dynamic IP address and network configuration. Go down, and we will select static IP address. We will then go to the next box where it says IP address. And we will go ahead and change this to a static IP address. Alright, subnet mask is alright, default gateway is okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit enter. As you can see on the right, it is now set with the static IP address I want it. IPv6 is disabled by default, and of course it's going to stay that way because we're not going to use it. DNS configuration. Go ahead and hit enter. Now in this case, my DNS is my router. But in a small business environment, you're going to want to set if you're running Windows, of course, you're going to want to set your primary DNS in one box, and if you're running a secondary, you want to set it in your second box. That way, it's easier for the software to locate the virtual machines, and of course, your virtual machines locate everything else. And on the host name, it can be whatever you want. We're going to just change it to EXSI Test. I know it's the most original name in the world, so we're going to go ahead and go with that one. And we're going to hit enter. And then for custom DNS, we're not going to mess with this today, but again, if you are running a DNS server, this is where, for the Windows anyways, you would put your DNS suffix information. Like for instance, if your name is thisishowIdoit.com, then what you would do is you would type that in there. So anything with, say, the name of the host will have the end of thisishowIdoit.com. It will search that suffix to easily find your machine. But since we're not going to be doing any of that, we're going to hit escape. All right, as you can see, we are now done. So we're going to hit escape again. And it's asking us, do you want to save this? And of course, the answer is yes. All right. So now that that is done, we're going to restart the management network, especially since we swapped from DHCP to stacked IP. So we're going to go ahead and restart. Go ahead and have F11 for OK. Then we're going to hit enter. Then we are going to test the management network to make sure everything's working. It's just letting us say, hey, this is what I'm going to be pinging the test. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter. And as you can see, that worked too. So we're going to hit enter again. We're going to skip over the restore network settings. We're good on the keyboard. And here are the different system logs you can view. And that, folks, is it. Once you have set this up, you will never, I would say 90-95% of the time that you run EXSI, will never have to go back into this, because from this point on, all your heavy lifting is either going to be done through the vSphere client or the vSphere web client that's used on the VMware vCenter server. So now we're going to go ahead and hit escape. Go back to the splash screen. As you can see, we now have a host name to which you can actually hook up to it per what it's saying. And now we're done. So normally, in normal case, if you were in a normal, say, server room, you would just put it to bed and let it lay there. All right, we are now back on the desktop, and now we're going to go into phase 2 and set up the most important feature after setting up your EXSI server, which is your vSphere client. This is a free download that you get when you download the EXSI server, as I showed you earlier. Go ahead and hit run. All right, we are now going to hit OK to begin the installation. Okay, as you can see, the splash screen is now up, so we're going to go ahead and click Next. As you can see, all of VMware's wonderful patents concerning their wonderful product. Got to make sure we absorb it in, realize that how wonderful it is, and then we click Next. Okay, as usual, it's either I agree, which is install, or I do not agree, which means do not install. So of course we're going to hit agree and install. All right, so we're going to go ahead and change this real quick. Register to user, and then type in your business or whatever you want to type in there. We will click next. Okay, right here, it's giving you the choice to install this in a different directory other than the default that it's specifying. We're just going to go with the default, but if you do want to change it, there's the change button. Please be my guest and go ahead and change it. Hit next. All right, so now it's ready to install the program, so we're going to hit install. All right, the installation is now completed. We will go ahead and click finish. All right, let's go ahead and open up our vSphere client. All right, here we go. As you can see, the IP address is already pre-filled, but in most cases that's not going to happen on the first opening anyways. In this case, we are going to use IP address since we're not running DNS, but if you did have DNS and you're running a fully qualified domain name service, you would type that in there. So it'd be like myserver.thisishowIdoit.com. And right here, since we only have one username at this point, basically for the EXSI server, which is root, we'll go ahead and enter that in. All right, it's just giving you a warning here saying that the certificate installed is got security warnings because it's self-made. Get past that, you just click the install certificate and you hit ignore, and you will not see that again. All right, we are in. Okay, don't panic with this notice. Don't duck for cover or yell murder or anything. This is just a standard evaluation license that comes with all VMware products, saying you have 60 days to fully test it using all their enriched features that this product has to offer with no fear of having to buy it or anything. But if you want this to go away, you have to enter your license key, which you should have obtained when you downloaded the software. Because after 60 days, this will stop working. So we're going to click OK. Now we are going to go to Configuration. We're going to go to Licensed Features. We're going to click on Licensed Features. Okay, as you can see, this is the different features that are currently open to you while using your 60-day evaluation license. Please note, this will go away once you put your personal license key in. But for everything you're doing, you're fine. You really don't need all this unless you're, say, studying from your VMware certification. In that case, then you may want to run it in the 60-day evaluation. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and enter our free edition license key. So we're going to go over to where it says Edit and click on Edit. This box will come up as saying, okay, I have no license key, so I'm running in evaluation mode. And then to enter our key, we got to, our free edition key, that is, all you do is hit Enter Key. You'll put in your license key, which will look something similar to what I'm typing out. Please note this is not a real key, so don't get any ideas. Okay, then you would hit OK. Alright, as you can see now, we are fully licensed with the Personal Edition license, and it will tell you exactly what you can and cannot do. So we have unlimited CPUs, up to 32 gigabytes of virtual RAM, and as you can see, the expiration date went from July, whatever, 2014 to never. And now we're going to hit OK. Alright, as you can see, we have lost all that feature-rich stuff originally, and we're down to the very basic. But for certifications, depending on what you're doing, just to try out, small business, even small, medium business needs, this is more than enough. All you would ever have to do is kick in the software. Kick in the money for the hardware. So we're going to go ahead and stop now, and we will be back here with part 2. Thank you for joining me on this segment of This Is How I Do It. I am IT Beast, and have a good day.